Nathaniel Bar, a predator no one saw coming. He looked like everyone else, friendly, polite, even the kind of man you'd trust to babysit your kids. But beneath that smile was something no one saw coming. A secret so dark, so horrifying, it would haunt an entire town forever. This is the story of Nathaniel Bar, the man who was evil in disguise. He walked among neighbors. He smiled when he passed people on the street. He held doors open. He offered help to anyone who met him. Nathaniel Bar seemed like the kind of man you could trust. But behind those calm eyes lived something else. Something unspeakable. Something that would turn a quiet Montana neighborhood into one of the darkest nightmares in modern true crime. This is the story of Nathaniel Bar, evil in disguise. A man who hid behind kindness. A predator no one saw coming. And a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary face can hide the darkest evil. Before he was Nathaniel Bar, he was David Paul Brown, born in 1957. Worcester, Massachusetts. From the outside, his childhood looked normal. He came from a modest, middle-class family. He attended local schools. He was quiet, a little odd, but nothing alarming. But early on, there were signs that something inside him wasn't right. Neighbors recalled strange, cruel pranks. A fascination with control, especially over those smaller or weaker than him. And an unsettling obsession with young children. As he grew older, that darkness grew louder. He struggled in school, often withdrawn, sometimes angry. Psychiatrists would later describe him as a man lost between fantasy and reality. In his 20s, he legally changed his name from David Paul Brown to Nathaniel Benjamin Levi Bar-Jonah. He claimed it was a spiritual awakening. But some believed it was just another layer of disguise. And it worked, because soon after, Nathaniel Bar began living a double life. By day, polite, helpful, sometimes even charming. By night, a man stalking the streets, searching for victims. The first crime that hinted at his true nature happened in the late 1970s. Bar, posing as a police officer, approached two young boys leaving a movie theater. He flashed a fake badge, told them they were in trouble, and handcuffed them. He led them into a dark alley. What happened next would scar one of them for life, and leave investigators wondering how deep Bar's sickness went. He tortured one of the boys. When he thought the child had died, he stuffed the other into the trunk of his car and drove off. The boy survived, barely, and authorities caught up to Bar soon after. He was charged with attempted murder, among other things, and sentenced to up to 20 years behind bars. You'd think this would be the end of the story, but this was just the beginning. Inside prison, doctors evaluated him, and their findings were chilling. They said Bar wasn't just violent, he was obsessed. He confessed fantasies of torture, of killing, and, disturbingly, of cannibalism. He described in shocking detail his fascination with young children and his desire to hurt them. Psychiatrists called him a dangerous sexual sadist. But the system believed he could be treated. So, after serving barely half of his sentence, Nathaniel Bar was released. He was no longer considered a threat. He told the parole board he was reformed. He promised he would never hurt anyone again, and they believed him. He walked free, a monster dressed in the skin of a man. Just weeks after his release, Nathaniel proved that promise meant nothing. In a Massachusetts parking lot, a 7-year-old boy sat in his mother's car while she ran into a store. When she came back, she saw a massive figure leaning into the car. The man, Nathaniel Bar, was sitting on top of her child, pressing his weight down. The boy's face had turned pale. He was gasping for air. Bar told police later he was trying to get out of the rain. but eventually admitted he wanted to kill the boy. And yet, once again, the system failed. He was given 2 years of probation and told to move out of state. So Nathaniel Bar packed up his things and moved west to Great Falls, Montana, a quiet community where no one knew who he really was. A fresh start for him and for the darkness he carried. Great Falls was the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked, where neighbors waved, kids rode bikes freely, and everyone knew each other's names. When Nathaniel moved in, he blended in easily. He was big, over 300 pounds, but gentle in manner. He smiled a lot. He offered to help carry groceries. He volunteered to watch kids for neighbors. He was the kind of man parents trusted, and that's what made him so dangerous. On March 22, 1996, a 10-year-old boy named Zachary Ramsay woke up, grabbed his backpack, and left for school. He never made it. His mother remembered him leaving just before 7:30 a.m. It was cold, overcast, a typical Montana morning. Zach took the same route every day, cutting through an alley that led toward the school. But that morning, something was different. Neighbors later said they saw a gray car pull close to him. They heard yelling. One witness said Zach looked scared, like he was crying. And not far behind him, a large man in a police-style jacket. That man was Nathaniel Bar. Within hours, Zachary was gone, vanished. Police combed through alleys, fields, dumpsters, nothing. No backpack, no shoe, no body. And for years, that's how it stayed. A mystery with no answers. But behind the closed doors of an apartment in Great Falls, Nathaniel Bar's secret life was beginning to unravel. He had notebooks filled with coded writing. He had strange recipes that mentioned the names of children. And deep in his freezer, investigators would later say, they found evidence that made even veteran detectives sick. But at that time, nobody knew. Not yet. To the outside world, he was still just a nice neighbor. The helpful man who smiled and waved. The man no one would ever suspect. But underneath, the darkness was spreading, and soon, it would spill out into full view. By the summer of 1999, 3 years after Zachary Ramsay vanished, people in Great Falls had tried to move on. The case had gone cold. There were no leads, no suspects, at least, not officially. But one detective, Bill Belcher, refused to let it go. Something about that morning never sat right with him. He'd seen too many missing persons cases to believe Zach just ran away. He was convinced someone took that boy. And soon, the clues started to circle back to one name, Nathaniel Bar. It started with whispers. Parents mentioned how Nathaniel had offered to babysit their kids, how he always seemed overly interested in young boys. One mother said he invited her son to his apartment for cooking lessons. Another said she caught him taking photos of children at the playground. Still, there wasn't enough for an arrest, until one chilling incident changed everything. A teenage boy told police that Nathaniel had invited him over for dinner. He said Nathaniel served a strange stew, thick, dark, greasy, and told him it was deer meat. But the boy swore the taste was different. He later told police, "I couldn't stop thinking about that missing boy." That's when investigators decided to get a search warrant. February 6, 1999. Police surrounded Nathaniel's small apartment complex in Great Falls. They knocked on his door, and when he opened it, he looked calm, almost expectant, as if he knew they were coming. The inside was a nightmare. Detectives found boxes of children's clothing that didn't belong to him. Photographs of random boys, some fully clothed, some not, and handwritten notes that were both bizarre and horrifying. In one notebook, he had a list of names. Next to some of them, dates. Next to others, strange phrases like meat stew, chili, and roast. When police reached the name Zach, they froze. Beside it was written, "Prepared nicely." Then came the discovery that turned this case into one of the most disturbing in American crime history. In Bar's freezer, officers found plastic bags filled with frozen meat. He told them it was venison, deer he had hunted himself. But Montana game wardens quickly confirmed he had no hunting license. He hadn't hunted in years. When forensic teams analyzed the meat, what they found defied belief. It contained human tissue, specifically human bone fragments. Police were horrified. The working theory soon became that Nathaniel Bar had kidnapped and murdered Zachary Ramsay, and possibly cooked and eaten parts of his remains. Even among seasoned detectives, some had to step out of the room. One officer later said, "I've seen homicide. I've seen dismemberment. But this was evil in its purest form." Over the following months, investigators pieced together a timeline. Neighbors reported seeing Zach with Bar that morning. One woman said she saw a boy crying near Bar's car. Another claimed she heard screams coming from his apartment around the same time Zach disappeared. Then came a witness who said something even darker. Bar had invited him over for dinner once and bragged that he loved cooking special meat. Inside his kitchen, police found an old meat grinder, stained with something they couldn't identify. Samples from the drain tested positive for human blood. Still, despite everything, they had no body. Without a body, prosecutors knew they couldn't charge him with murder. But they didn't need to, because as they dug deeper, they uncovered decades of child abuse, kidnapping attempts, and sexual assaults, all tied back to Bar. This wasn't just one case. This was a lifetime of evil. Going back to the 1970s, detectives uncovered records of Nathaniel's previous arrests, each one involving children. The fake cop act, the suffocation attempt, the parole violation. It was all there, a chain of escalating crimes stretching over 2 decades. They realized that Great Falls hadn't just gotten unlucky. They had unknowingly welcomed a serial predator, a man who had slipped through the cracks of the system again and again. And this time, the consequences were beyond comprehension. Nathaniel Bar was arrested and charged with kidnapping, aggravated assault, and multiple counts of child molestation. Investigators desperately wanted to add murder, but without Zach's remains, it was nearly impossible. Still, prosecutors presented the evidence in a way that painted a chilling picture. The coded notes, the freezer, the meat grinder, the testimonies. When the story hit the media, the headlines were brutal. Cannibal killer of Montana, the monster next door, and later simply, evil in disguise. Reporters camped outside his courtroom. Parents in Great Falls stopped letting their kids play outside. For the first time, the town realized that safety is sometimes just an illusion. Bar denied everything. He said the meat was from roadkill. He said the notebook was fiction. He claimed police planted evidence. But the deeper he talked, the darker it sounded. During interrogations, Bar slipped. He talked about how human flesh tastes like pork. He mentioned recipes that could make anyone disappear. At one point, he told detectives that cooking solves everything. Even if those words couldn't convict him of murder, they revealed his mind. He wasn't just cruel. He was proud of what he was. By the year 2000, the case against Nathaniel Bar had grown massive. Over 100 pieces of evidence, dozens of victims, years of trauma uncovered. But still, one question haunted everyone. Where was Zach? The answer would never truly come. And yet, What investigators uncovered next, inside Nathaniel's own words, would finally make them understand who they were really dealing with. A man who wasn't just hiding his evil, he was worshiping it. By the time the trial began in 2000, the name Nathaniel Bar had become synonymous with terror. Parents clutched their children tighter. Reporters filled every seat in the courthouse. The air felt heavy, as if the town itself was holding its breath. Prosecutors painted a horrifying picture of a man who lived for control, for pain, and for power. A man who hid behind a smile, while committing acts that most people couldn't even imagine. The courtroom was silent as prosecutors laid out their evidence. Photographs, notebooks, and forensic reports were displayed, each more disturbing than the last. Jurors were shown pages filled with coded language that investigators had spent months decoding. Lines like, "Little stew tonight," "Game tastes fresh," "Zach prepared well." Every word sent chills through the room. They brought in experts who testified about Barr's psychological evaluations. He was diagnosed as a psychopathic sadist, with no empathy, no remorse, and an obsession with death and domination. One psychiatrist said, "Nathaniel Bar is not insane. He knows what he's doing. He enjoys it." His defense team tried to frame him as delusional, a man living in fantasy, whose writings were just imagination gone too far. They argued that there was no direct proof of murder, and that without a body, the prosecution couldn't prove Zach was dead. But then, the prosecution brought out one final piece of evidence, the freezer photos. Inside, neatly wrapped in butcher paper, were packages labeled with dates that matched the days children had gone missing. And in Barr's handwriting, words like summer roast and special meat. The courtroom gasped. Even the judge had to pause the session to compose himself. In the end, the jury found Nathaniel Bar guilty of kidnapping, aggravated assault, and sexual abuse of minors. He was sentenced to 130 years in prison, with no possibility of parole. He never admitted to killing Zachary Ramsay. He never confessed to cannibalism, but his silence said everything. Investigators believe he killed Zach, and possibly more victims, whose names were never discovered. When asked by a reporter if he regretted anything, Bar simply smirked and said, "You can't regret what you enjoyed." That was the last time he ever spoke publicly. Nathaniel Bar spent his final years in the Montana State Prison. Inmates avoided him. Guards described him as manipulative, eerie, and unrepentant. He spent his days writing. More notebooks filled with strange recipes, religious scribbles, and twisted fantasies. Then, on April 13th, 2008, guards found him unresponsive in his cell. He was dead from apparent heart failure. He was 51 years old. There was no funeral. No one claimed his body. He was buried in an unmarked grave. And with him, the truth about what happened to Zachary Ramsay was buried too. For Zach's mother, the pain never ended. She held on to hope that maybe, somehow, her son had survived. But deep down, she knew. Every year, she visits the spot where Zach was last seen, leaves a single toy car, his favorite thing in the world. She once said, "People think monsters hide in the dark, but some monsters smile at you in broad daylight." The legacy of the case. Nathaniel Bar's case forced major changes in parole laws across several states. It made law enforcement rethink how they track repeat offenders, and it reminded the world of something most of us would rather not believe. That true evil often looks ordinary. He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a myth. He was real. He lived among good people, in good neighborhoods, pretending to be one of them. And for years, no one saw through the disguise. When we hear stories like this, it's tempting to believe that monsters are rare, that they live far away, in some other place. But the truth is much harder to accept, because Nathaniel Bar wasn't born in a cave or raised by evil. He was one of us, a man who chose darkness step by step until it consumed him entirely. And maybe that's what makes this story so haunting. Not just what he did, but how easily he hid it. If you take one thing from this story, let it be this: evil doesn't always knock down your door. Sometimes it's the one holding it open for you, smiling, pretending to help, watching you from the other side. This has been Nathaniel Bar, Evil in Disguise. A story of trust broken, innocence lost, and the darkness that sometimes walks among us. If you found this story chilling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime tales that uncover the minds behind real-life monsters. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.